one of the fun things I got to get you back at is we're talking about buy now, and it's gonna appreciate. It's gonna appreciate. You talked about a time in the hobby where even if you bought LeBron, even if you bought high end LeBron, your family thought you were nuts because from '03 to 2011, you had these cards that were $5,000 and they hardly appreciated, right? And there was a period of nearly a decade there where even the top cards in the hobby just did nothing, right? And then all of a sudden, you start to see a little increase. And the most recent 2 years has just been a huge boom for cards, a huge value increase on cards. Um, Someone like you who, has not only your own collection and your own, information about your own collection and your own collecting timeline over the last couple of decades, but now obviously sit in a pretty important position for the hobby, what do you see? I've heard people say we're in the first inning, we're in the second inning, we're in the third inning. You want to use a baseball analogy, that's fine too. But I mean, our listeners, who a lot of them have just gotten in the last year, and over the last couple of months, have seen, let's call it a breather in prices. If I'm going to be generous, right? So what do you see? What do you see for the next year, the next 2 years? And do you also preach the way we do, to take kind of like a wider angle view of this stuff, right? It's not about what the card price was in January and in April. It's about what the card prices are over a much longer period of time. So where do you think we are, and what do you say to that kind of stuff?
I mean, look, it's impossible to know. I'm not going to claim that I can. I certainly didn't predict things would be where they are today, even a year ago. Last February, March, March when COVID hit. I mean, I personally was very nervous. Not my number one concern. COVID had a lot of other issues, family and stuff that I was worried about, but that card collecting and cards themselves would become less valuable, and because I had a pretty big collection at the time. But the opposite happened. So first of all, I can't really predict, but if you look at it today, I mean, a lot of people have entered the hobby. That's the thing I look at the most on the positive side. You look at, kids are opening packs again. Like I've said this a few times in other shows, like there's a card shop, or a bodega on our street that sells packs. Like they're always sold out. And when I do see them there, their kids, parents with their kids buying them. Like you'd go to card shows 5-6 years ago. It was mainly guys like us, in their 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, very few teenagers, kids, the hobby is healthier than it was. And that's good for prices. If you look at, those kids like me and you guys, like we grew up, they'll grow up. And when they they get a job, like they'll start using some of their disposable income on cards, and that'll keep prices going. But, if you like on the downside, like some cards that I just can't understand how some of these cards have gotten, like the Tom Brady championship ticket auto out of 100, like that card is amazing. Is it $2 million amazing? I don't know. Like it's, can barely see the autograph, but, like I do like that card. But, I just think there's clearly an investor, mentality that's taken hold of some of these really high end cards like that. Like, the best card of Brady, the best card of Jordan, the best card of LeBron, you've seen inflation there that, you have to hope that there's another person after that will pay more. And so far there has been, but, and Jordan's leveled off, like the 86 Fleer number 57 PSA 10, like that card has, I would say it went way up, and then now it's leveled back down to kind of, and that happened 5 years ago. It went up to 30 grand, then it leveled back down to 20 grand. Now it went up to what, 800. Now it's back down to 400, 500. So you've seen these kind of maturations of these cards. But again, like on the really high end, like it's like sports teams. Like, can people keep paying higher prices for sports teams? I don't know how that's possible given how high they've gotten. I feel the same way about the highest of high end cards. But I look at like, mid-range cards, like, $100 to $1,000 or whatever, those I see a great future for, the Kawhi Leonard, or the Luka Doncic, base, no, prisms are more expensive than that, but like Donruss cards, like PSA 10s, like those things have a future for sure. You look at LeBron tops, 03, like those were a few $100 PSA 10 years ago. Not even that long ago, 5-6 years ago. Topps Chrome rookie card PSA 10 was $1,000 4 years ago. Now they're 30 grand. That'll happen with the Ja Morants and the Zions and all those guys that are coming out now. Luka. So there's still a lot of opportunity, but again, the highest of high end is where, I'm not selling my stuff because again, to me, it's less about the money. It's more about owning the card. But I'm lucky in that way, I guess. But if you're doing it just for the money on the highest end, I can't tell you if they're going to keep going up or not.
So it's a great answer that'll lead me to two questions. Number one, let's talk about your Luka and your Ja and your Zion. Talk just right now about how, we think that some of those cards are going to go up, right? Over time, because they're in that sweet spot window that you're talking about, $100 to $1,000. Does the fact that there's so much supply of those factor in, as opposed to like the LeBron you mentioned? And then the part B of it, if you choose to answer, is, the rumor mill out there wants to say that, PSA is keenly aware of the fact that there is a supply of these cards that's significant, and that too much supply of high grades of those cards are is bad for the hobby and will prevent those things from going up and prevent people from grading. And the dark shadows of the world want to say that PSA is not just serving as a grader, but as someone who's population control of certain cards, Lukas, Zions, you name it. Without any evidence at all, I might add, but this is what we do. We talk, right? So, one, do you think that really those cards could maintain, value over time given the supply increase? And two, is that something PSA takes into account, or do we look at the card? I'm a lawyer, so we look at the four corners of the document, and that's it. That's what we look at, right? You don't want to take in any extrinsic evidence, you name it, right? So I always think, a grader is presented with a card. He looks at it. You have your grading standards, and if it's a 10, it's a 10. If it's a 9, it's a 9. Is that not right?
Well, on the second one, there's no way that's true. I mean, we are objectively looking at the cards on their merit. It doesn't matter if it's Luka or Anthony Simmons. I mean, it doesn't matter. On the first question, I do think there's a lot of upside there. I mean, I go back to the hobbies growing. More people are in it. That's generally means more demand. Sports in general, I think, are getting more exciting, better content. I think certainly when fans are coming back in, what's interesting, is like these card prices have gone up with like the NBA bubble, like, which kind of sucked as an experience, right? Watching. So can you imagine when stadiums are full again? So, I personally think just you got to look at the health of the hobby, which to me means, it's not an income producing, like it doesn't pay a dividend. Like if you buy a card, it's not going to make you money indirect or directly. You have to hope that the value goes up. The only way you can hope the value goes up if some other schmuck's willing to buy it from you in the future. And so, that means you have to look at how many people are in it. And, you go on eBay, there's more people watching auctions. You go on Golden, there's more people bidding than there ever were. There's more international buyers than there ever has been. There's younger people who, again, you look like that's the problem Major League Baseball has, right? With the aging audience, the aging fan base. That's the beauty of cards is like you got soccer, you've got Pokemon, you've got, of course, basketball is very international. Football is America's sport. You've got so many different options to play with. I think sports in general, again, is just, card values. If the card values were going to go down in mass, sports would have to be less popular. And I just don't see that happening. And the cross section, again, seeing 12 and 13-year-olds buying cards is just so inspiring to me, or, it makes me so optimistic for the hobby. Seeing them get back into it, like I was when I was a kid. There used to be 4 or 5 people deep at the, at the glass cage and the glass display cases at the card shop, back in 95, 96. Like, you're like looking over someone's shoulder to see what someone's pulling. Like, that's happening again. Like I went to the White Plains show with my son, 2-3 years ago. Like, it's busy, but like not really. There's you could do anything there. Now it's probably a line out the door if they were to have it.
Oh, if they had it now, definitely. I mean, I
it'd be
thought there was a
insane.
line in the local Holiday Inn show yesterday. So,
But the cool part is, unlike Top Shot, it's not a bunch of crypto bros. It's not like the speculators. There's some of that, the guys waiting in Walmart buying all the boxes before the kids can, which drives me nuts. But it's a lot of, families. It's dads and, whatever, with their sons and daughters, like I am, showing up. That's what's cool. So I think all those things make it I have a very optimistic view of the. I mean, look, I wouldn't be optimistic unless, if I hadn't done the PSA move and all that. But, I do think there's a really bright future for it. And I think prices too. So.